God has given us a special and wonderful gift called memory, and it seems so natural for us as human beings to remember the past when we say things like, "Do you remember the time?" or "Do you remember when?" We pick little anecdotes from our storehouse of memories. We tell the stories of people, places, and the events of the past that are important. Why are they important? Because their lives and their faith have issued forth our life and our faith. We believe that knowing their past helps us to understand our present and even give insight to the future. For this reason, we're going to use that special gift of memory for a few minutes today to walk back into our parish history. Nearly a century and a half before a Catholic had taken up permanent residence in Onondaga County, the soil of our parish was traveled by missionaries bent upon the conversion of the Indians and to survey the prospects for the establishment of a mission among the Iroquois. The principal village of the Onondaga was then located at what is now called Indian Hill, in the town of Pompey, some 2 miles southeast of the village of Manlius. A little mission, Chapel of St. John the Baptist on Indian Hill, and its successor after 1681 at Jamesville, was the local center of Christianity to the 5 Iroquois nations. While engaged on their apostolic journeys between the central mission of the Onondaga and the western missions among the Cayugas and Senecas, these priests crossed the hills and valleys now embraced within our parish limits. Between 1709 and 1812, the work begun by the French Jesuits continued to grow. There were only a handful of Catholics settled in the colonies. These Catholics belonged to no parish or diocese until 1789, when the Holy See established the Diocese of Baltimore. Any Catholics residing in upstate New York at that time became the spiritual charges of the Bishop of Baltimore. Later, the Diocese of New York was established, which included all of the state of New York as well as New Jersey, and could claim a Catholic flock of 13,000. The first Catholics on Onondaga Hill were Irish immigrants who settled here before 1870. For the most part, they attended St. Lucy's in Syracuse, although several families were members of St. Mary's Church, our current cathedral in downtown Syracuse. The first big step toward establishing a parish on Onondaga Hill took place in 1873, when Father John J. Kennedy, shortly after his appointment as pastor of St. Lucy's, gathered together the Catholics of the Onondaga Hill section and said Mass at the home of Michael Lynch, usually once a week on Saturday. This home was located on what is now an entrance to Onondaga Community College off Route 173. In 1874, because of the large settlement of Catholics on Onondaga Hill, Father Kennedy purchased a 2-family house from a Mrs. Sophia Peck for $1,000, and conversion into a church was begun. The house, located at the corner of Velasco Road and Seneca Turnpike, was a small frame building with a seating capacity of 110, which served the parish until 1949. At that time, the parish that would grow into what it is today had a total of 40 families. In November 1884, St. Michael's became a mission of St. Francis Xavier's in Marcellus. There was no set hour for Sunday Mass. It was said whenever the priest could get there, sometimes as late as 1 p.m. In the early 1890s, people gradually stopped coming to the church, and the church was closed and boarded. Life was not easy in these days for both parishioners and priests. For example, the children would go to church with their families, although they received most of their religious instruction at home. When it came time for them to receive the sacraments, they went to church to learn their catechism. Sunday school teachers would remain after Mass and work with the children. While the church was a mission, the only time you'd see a priest was on Sunday mornings, provided he could reach the area during the harsh winters. Roads weren't plowed, and sometimes he would be forced to travel through neighbors' fields where the snow was not as deep. On most occasions, the visiting priest would come to St. Michael's and St. Peter's on Saturday evening, put his horse up with a parishioner, and then hear confessions. A small stove on the second floor of the church would be started, and the priest would sleep on the floor. The little church on the road that passes through Split Rock on the way to Marcellus stands today as a silent tribute to more than 100 years of service to the Catholic community of its small parish. It has always been a mission church, but that isn't to say it has ever been anything less than a center of parish activity. The members of this church play a very important role in the history of St. Michael's Parish. Before the construction of St. Peter's, parishioners in Split Rock attended Mass and other services at the cathedral in downtown Syracuse, at St. Joseph's in Camillus, or at private homes. This parish was founded by Irish immigrants, quarry workers mostly, and devout Catholics. In 1891, the property on which the church stands was purchased by Father Michael Hees, pastor of St. Mary's in Syracuse. A frame building was constructed to seat 180 people. 2 priests, Father Sullivan and Father W.A. Ryan, supervised the laying of the cornerstone in 1891. Although there was going to be a church the parishioners could call their own, It was still to be operated as a mission church by the parish of St. Joseph's. The religious leadership of St. Peter's closely parallels that of St. Michael's, even before St. Michael's had a pastor of its own beginning in 1930. In 1903, Father O'Shea was named pastor of St. Cecilia's in Salve. He was also given charge of St. Peter's and St. Michael's, and they officially became a mission of St. Cecilia's. Father O'Shea never reopened the building of St. Michael's. During this time, people had to attend other churches such as St. Peter's, St. Anthony's, St. Lucy's, and St. Joseph's. After Father O'Shea's death in 1917, Father Sheridan from St. Lucy's in Syracuse was given responsibility for the two missions. He reopened St. Michael's and awakened a new interest among the parishioners. He painted the church and completely renovated the inside. St. Peter's mission grew larger with each new generation. This was aided by the Salve Process Company, which worked the stone quarries in the Split Rock area. However, in 1910, the Salve firm moved their quarry operation to Jamesville, and many of the parishioners moved as well in order to retain their jobs. Tragedy struck the tiny parish in 1917 when the Split Rock powder factory, owned by the federal government, was destroyed by an explosion. The explosion leveled the immediate area, killing 51 employees and causing damage as far away as Syracuse. At St. Peter's, less than a quarter mile away, the windows were blown out, the doors caved in, and the entire building twisted out of shape. To this day, the building tilts slightly to one side. Still, the church and the parish survived and remain today as a partner with the church and the people of St. Michael's. Depending on the weather and the condition of the roads in the winter, maybe 30 or 40 people came to church. On holidays, everybody showed up. People wouldn't go into the church right away when they got there. Instead, they would stand outside in little gatherings until someone would come outside to tell them that the Mass had started. Then they would go into the church and congregate outside again as soon as it was over. The church was beginning to grow during these years. With regular masses and concerned pastors, parishioners began to work together to build the parish. On May 22, 1927, the Altar Society was formed with Miss Jessie Tucker as the first president. Their responsibility was to care for the altar clothes, and the pastor's vestments. This was only one example of the growing unity within the church. Different people gave in different ways, all for the hope of making St. Michael's a strong parish. Father Sloan became the first resident pastor of St. Michael's Parish on September 27, 1930. After 50 years of being a mission of other churches, St. Michael's finally had its own pastor. On Sundays, Father Sloan said Mass at St. Michael's at 8:30 and 11 and 9:30 at Split Rock. The Onondaga Sanitarium was also attached to the parish, and Masses were celebrated every Sunday at 8:15. Reverend Edward J. Simpson, Assistant Supervisor of Catholic Charities, assisted Father Sloan. Since there was no rectory, one of Father Sloan's first projects was to build a rectory for the parish. The first permanent rectory is the building that is now located on the west side of St. Michael's Church. It was erected in 1931, made of tapestry brick. It has 14 rooms and cost $23,000 upon completion. This building was used as a rectory until 1980, when it was converted to a convent for the nuns of the parish. It now serves as the Sacred Heart Center. St. Michael's and Mission St. Peter's listed their finances separately after St. Michael's was established as a parish in 1930. Physical boundaries were laid out to divide the churches, and each church had their own envelopes. Individual finance reports were issued each year for each church, which included their income and expenses for the year. This arrangement carried on for 41 years until Father Kilpatrick in 1971 consolidated both churches' finances into one. In 1934, Father McMahon succeeded Father Sloan as pastor. When he came to Onondaga Hill, he set about building up the church and paying down the parish debt. Father McMahon was a businessman who kept track of money and kept a list of how much people gave. When people saw progress was being made, they worked even harder. He asked parishioners to host socials and card parties to raise money. The Altar and Rosary Society began sponsoring oyster suppers and chicken dinners at this time. Reverend James E. Meegan was assigned to be the pastor of our church in September of 1940. During Father Meegan's tenure, the debt on the rectory was retired. He organized many social activities to raise funds, including bazaars in the parking lot and in the rectory basement. There seemed to always be good weather on those days. The people really began helping the church, working side by side with one another. The bazaars entailed a lot of work, setting up a week before and cleaning for another week after. There were one-armed bandits in the garage and raffles going on all the time. One parishioner recalled a pig being raffled one year. Somehow it got loose before the drawing, and they never found it. Father Meegan was succeeded by Father Kissane. The parish debt had already been paid off, and less than 2 months after he arrived, he purchased the parking lot west of the rectory for $3,000. 2 months later, the little old church was demolished and the construction of the new one had begun. A new church was needed since there were too many people for the old one to hold. In February 1950, the basement of the church was completed at a cost of $56,314, and it was dedicated in March. This was used as a church until 1956, when the upper portion was completed. During this period of time, many different types of fundraising events were held, including plays and dinners. In 1950, the first variety show was held to raise money to help pay for the new church. Raise the Roof featured a barbershop quartet, a performance by the St. Anthony of Padua Girls Glee Club, skits, tap dancing, and Irish dancing. Performances by both people in the community and in the parish were given. Since it was such a terrific success, the shows continued until the 1950s. St. Peter's Altar Rosary Society was organized in 1951 and was very active for many years. Meetings were held in members' homes, and many fundraising dinners and card parties were held at the Holland Hill Community Center. St. Peter's Holy Name Society was organized in 1952. The members constructed a meeting room in St. Peter's Church by chiseling the rock in the basement to make a room. This room is now being used for storage. In 1952, the parish purchased the Cosset Geddes home, which is the present rectory, and the adjoining 20 acres of property. In June 1955, Father Cassain purchased the Allen Pool House. This property was needed for expansion of the church building and additional parking space. The present sanctuary and sacristies of St. Michael's are located on the property. The new church was completed in October 1956, and it was rededicated by the Most Reverend Walter A. Forey, Bishop of Syracuse. Father Cassain celebrated the first solemn Mass in the new building, which had a seating capacity of 540. The final cost of the new church, which was paid for in full in 1962, was $228,989. On June 1, 1960, Mr. Bernard Delaney donated 1 acre of land for the construction of St. Aloysius Religious Education Center on Casson Road. Construction of the center began in October, and the first classes were held on April 11, 1961. As soon as St. Aloysius was completed, renovation was started on the old Cosset Geddes house, for it was to become the St. Michael's St. Peter's Convent and the home of the missionary Franciscan sisters. The first sisters arrived on August 28, 1961. Bishop Forey dedicated the convent on September 8, 1961. In 1966, an addition was constructed to Peter's to accommodate their growing population. Father Cassain continued to help the parishes grow until his retirement in 1969. He helped make the parish financially secure, and many people still remember him well today. Father Vincent J. Kilpatrick, a pastor who was known as Always Doing for People, was appointed pastor at St. Michael's on March 25, 1969. Since the Second Vatican Council, there has been a profound change in the nuance of the church and the atmosphere of our parish. The Second Vatican Council recommended more lay participation in the temporal affairs of the church. And so in April 1969, Father Kilpatrick, at the request of Bishop Forey, organized a parish council to bring the recommendations of the laity more forcefully to the daily life and orientation of the parish. Leo Kelly was a member of that original parish council and has been a trustee of St. Peter's for 53 years. In April 1971, the construction of the parish center began. The cost of the project was $250,000. It was completed in September 1971. It became a center of activity for both the young and old of our parish and surrounding community. Father Robert Wright served as pastor from June 1984 until 1987. He was joined by Father Frederick Park to serve the needs of St. Michael's and St. Peter's. Father Richard Morset then became our pastor in 1987. He offered our parish community with 12 years of gentle, steady leadership. Father Henry Pedzik, who had previously served as an associate pastor from 1973 to 1977, returned to St. Michael's and St. Peter's after 20 years to become pastor in July 1999. The lay people of our parish today are active in many different areas of church life, from ministry to administration. Under Father Pedzik's inspiration, St. Michael's parishioners volunteer their time and effort at serving the needs of the poor. Others help to educate our children in the basics of our faith. Many assist our priest and enrich the liturgy of the parish as Eucharistic ministers, cantors, lectors, greeters, ushers, altar servers, and other music ministry. Our present pastor, Father Pedzik, has brought to the parish a long-standing history of services to people, and he has inspired our parish to the same spirit of service. Service to others means bringing the light of faith, the warmth of Christ's love to people. The loving and spirited work of Father Pedzik has now encouraged even greater lay leadership in the parish and taken on new meaning as the parish turns to face the future. Recently, the Pastoral Council reflected on what our parish should be like in its next 100 years. They seek to preserve and advance the parish's tradition of reverent worship and its spirit of ecumenism and cooperation with the greater community. We will move forward to advance our mission as a Catholic community that listens to the Word of God and strives to live the message of love, service, and justice. This is our spirit of the past. This is our spirit today.